Welcome to the My Tennis Coaching Podcast, your go-to resource for all things tennis coaching. Your host is Steve Whelan. Here, we dive deep into ecological dynamics and constraint-led coaching practices. Whether you're a seasoned coach or just starting out, this podcast is designed to build your confidence, expand your knowledge, and refine your techniques. Join me as we challenge traditional methods, explore player-centered approaches, and transform your coaching experience. Let's take your coaching game to the next level together. Stay tuned for insightful discussions and practical tips that will make a real difference on and off the court.
Parents and the issue of comparison. Welcome to mytenniscoaching.com and the My Tennis Coaching Podcast. And today I want to discuss comparisons and why parents feel the need to make comparisons with their child, potentially with other children, and the dangers and the harm that comparisons do. So quite recently, once again, one of my players has decided to move on. And that's part of the journey. That's part of the process. As a coach who works in performance, I understand that I am just a small part of any player's journey. Players move on. I have no issues with players moving on. And again, a player moved on a few months ago. I recorded sort of my reasons why that player moved on. Definitely on sort of the national pathway. And another player has decided to move on. And that's not to say that I'm losing all my players. It's just say that's just part of the journey and sort of my role. And I don't have any issues with players moving on. Again, I'm always quite conscious filming or recording these type of podcasts because I don't want to come across as bitter or resentful. And like when players move on, I always wish them the best and hope they do well and hope they improve and hopefully they get exactly what they want from moving on. What I want to talk about is things that parents especially need to consider when they make decisions. So the last two players that have moved on from me recently, and to be honest, most players who move on, it's not normally a player's decision, it's normally a parent's decision. Sometimes it might even be my decision. And if I decide to move on from a player, it's normally a breakdown in relationship with the player. So I just don't feel that the connections there, the players maybe not responding to my way of coaching, and we're not quite getting the results. And that might be outcome-based results or just process-based results. And it might be just, there's just no relationship there. And I may say to the parents, listen, it's not working. And I generally know it's not working when I don't enjoy the sessions. If I don't enjoy the sessions, I know, okay, it's probably not working. It's time for a change. And again, players may not work with me, and I get that feeling as well. If there's no connection there and the player's not responding, then I know that the player may feel that, okay, it's not working with me. And again, I would then act accordingly and sort of look to separate or change things up. I get really concerned when parents make that decision and parents decide, okay, it's time for a change. And first and foremost, I think parents only ever want what's best for the player or their child. They only ever do it with the best intentions. Okay, they will look at the situation and, okay, how can I improve it for the benefit of my child? They're not that interested in the coach, not that interested in the coach's feelings. They're not interested in the coach's business or anything like that. They're just, okay, the sole focus is the child. And I 100% agree with that. With the previous player we talked about, again, the parents were recommended to go with a more technical coach. Steve Whelan, Ecological Dynamics, doesn't really teach technique. There's issues in and around the serve. You need to go to a coach who's going to teach technique, otherwise you'll get left behind. So the parents' head's been changed by, in that case, potentially, again, I don't know this for sure, but potentially a other coach or other coaches that I've been told have passed that information on. So that's not what I want to talk about today. Today I want to talk about the second player and comparison. And I believe that the parents have made the decision to move on based on comparisons. And the parents obviously haven't said that to me when they've given me a text message of saying we're going to go with a new coach. It's not been really, there's no real honesty in there of we're moving because we believe X, Y, and Z. It's always they always try and soften the blow, which I think's worse. I'd rather just be having honest and frank conversation and actually have an opportunity to not argue, but at least put my points across as well. And yeah, but whatever. So I've seen this coming for maybe, I reckon, 8 months. I reckon when I came back after Christmas, I sat down with the parent and we discussed, okay, what we're going to do this year. And the parent said to me, oh, well, we've had a lesson with another coach because you were off over Christmas. You took time off over Christmas. We wanted a couple of lessons over Christmas, so we booked in with another coach and we had some lessons. So again, I've no issues with that. If parents want to have lessons, great. At least have the decency to tell me and inform me, and maybe ask for a recommendation of a coach that maybe works a similar way to me. So don't quite like the sneakiness of that type. But okay, at the end of the day, they're free to do what they want. There's no contract. There's no exclusivity agreement in place that he can only have lessons with me. So okay. And the parents to me, okay, we were worried about the backhand, and we went to this other coach and we expressed our concerns over the backhand, and they fixed it. They fixed the backhand in 1 hour. It was unbelievable. This coach literally was magic. They turned water into wine. I said, oh, okay, that's interesting. He said, oh yeah, it was good. The coach isolated the backhand. They fed loads of balls. They got loads of repetition. They filmed it. They filmed it before and after. So before, this is what the backhand looked like. Then they filmed it in the drill. And yeah, it was amazing. They really fixed the technique. So the coach isolated the practice and filmed it. They filmed a dynamic situation. Then they filmed a isolated situation. And the isolation, it looked really good. So then the parents mesmerized and really happy. And the player seems really happy because they keep getting lots of praise and how good their backhand's improved. And from a ecological dynamics point of view, from a movement skill acquisition point of view, I was like, okay, that's interesting. Has it stuck? And you're like, what do you mean has it stuck? Well, the video clip where you see the perfect technique, did we see it tonight in our lesson? And you're like, no, didn't see it tonight. Because my lesson, again, is quite open situations. Okay, so we didn't see it in an open situation. When you go to a tournament at the weekend, can you look for it and see if it's there as well? Okay, yeah, we will do. I said, well, listen, the issue I have is you've gone from a ecological dynamics based coach, where I believe in exploring variable movements and multiple movement solutions. I don't teach one way to play. I try and teach multiple ways. And then you've gone to a coach who's very traditional, isolated the skill, practice the skill in isolation, lots of repetition. And those two things don't mix. It's oil and water. They both look the same, but they both have completely different properties, and they don't mix. Like it's very difficult to mix the two, because you go from my lessons where the player very much has autonomy and they make lots of decisions and they're driving the bus, they're taking us on the journey. And then you have the traditional approach where the coach makes all the decisions. There's a single way to play, there's a single way to hit the ball, and the coach is driving the bus. And the parent to me, well, could we do both? Could we have a lesson with you and a lesson with the other coach? I said no, because they don't mix, and all it's going to do is cause conflict in the player. But no matter what you decide, whether you decide to stay with me, or if you decide to go with the other coach, you have my blessing. But I don't feel comfortable working in that situation where you have, and you're trying to get the best of both worlds. And I understand your mindset of, well, we've got Steve, and the way they see me is I'm developing the mental skills only, or the tactical skill. They need a technical coach. And just misconception within sport now that you need a specialist coach for all different areas. Like in football, you need a throwing coach and a free kick coach, or a penalty coach, or a shooting coach and a passing coach. What an absolute load of rubbish. Like, we don't have specialist coaches in different areas. And what I try to explain to the parent is I'm developing everything. Technique, you want to call it technique, movement, tactical, social. I'm trying to deliver everything in a very holistic way. I'm not developing a tennis player, I'm developing the person. I'm not like, you may think that I'm just working on psychological or mental skills. It's absolutely not. And okay, and I understand that because you might not grasp that as a parent. I wouldn't expect you to, because you're not a coach and you're not as deep in the mud that I am with coaching and coach education. So I understand that. So you can't have a technical coach and a tactical coach, which is something I hear so much. Like, I've got a tactical coach, I've got a technical coach. Well, there's no such thing. It should just be a coach. So anyway, the player goes off, plays a tournament. Parent comes back and goes, competed really well, played really well, backhand technique wasn't there, went out the window. I said, well, that's a downside with traditional coaching and isolating technique. It looks good in isolation because it's a single shot. It's an isolated environment. The coach is feeding the ball to the player. In a match, it's an open, dynamic situation, and their opponent is trying to make the other player miss. So you've gone from one extreme to the other, and that's why you don't see the transfer. And they said, okay, yeah, we get it. I said, listen, I'm happy to send you some podcasts and some resources so you understand this a little bit more, and I might give you a bit more of an insight to how I work and why I work the way I do. And I said, I'm very much an evidence-based coach, like in terms of the science and the research. And that's the way it's going to work. I'm parent, okay, very happy. And so fast forward a few months, and this must be, I don't know, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, I get a message from a different coach. And he said, okay, hi, Steve, such and such player has approached me for a lesson. They want to have a lesson tomorrow. Just checking with you if it's okay. And first and foremost, fair play to the coach. They didn't have to drop me a message. But again, I like that professionalism of just reaching out to the other coach to make sure, is it okay? Is there anything I want to work on? So I really appreciated that. And I replied to the coach, said, oh, okay, let me speak to dad. Like, nothing against you. I'm not going to say no, but I need to speak to the parents involved. So I sent dad a message and said, listen, like, again, you've gone to another coach without informing me. I don't have an ego, but I'm not going to be working extremely hard on court trying to get the player to perform in a way that I feel will benefit them if they're going to another coach who's doing a different methodology and will causing conflict in the player. I don't think that's right for the player. If you want to go with the other coach, absolutely fine. Got no issues with that whatsoever. But you can't do it behind my back. You need to be honest and open with me up front. And again, message come back, really, really sorry. We didn't actually approach the coach. We just sounded the coach out. And we just felt that the backhand, again, needs a little bit of work. And this coach is a technical expert. And we just wanted their technical expertise. And they're getting great results with some other players who are playing to a pretty high level, ITF junior level. So once again, the technical expert comes out. And I'm really respectful when I speak about other coaches in general. Yeah, there's a couple of coaches that I may make sort of fun of online, especially some of the Instagram coaches. But if they're working within my close-knit environment and stuff, I'm never going to badmouth another coach. And I just said, I don't agree with the technical expert part. Just because a coach says a lot of fancy words, shouts a lot of technical instruction, it doesn't really mean they know how humans learn and how we move. Because if they did know that, they would know that shouting explicit instructions, practicing movement in isolation will not transfer. So what they're doing, it's putting on a show. It's a bit of an illusion. And I've been that coach as well. I've been that coach where I believe that if I shout enough technical stuff and I work in isolation enough, that the player will develop muscle memory. I now know with research and evidence that muscle memory doesn't exist. I said, listen, like, If you want to go with them, go with them. Not interested in sharing the player if the other coach is technical focused. It just doesn't mix with my style of coaching. If you want to go with another coach who works a similar way to me, and there's a couple of coaches I know, got no issue. Again, if you want a second opinion, a second pair of eyes, I think that's actually good. That's beneficial for the player, because sometimes I'm so engrossed in stuff that I might not see other things, but it has to be beneficial to the player. And that means both coaches have same rough ideas of how we want to try and help the player develop. And again, parent apologise, "Oh, listen, really sorry. We just try and do what's best." Goes back to what I said at the start of the podcast. Just try and do what's best for the player. I get that, 100%. I 100% get that. And this is where the comparison starts coming in. And I said, okay, over the next few weeks, I'm going to really try and help you. I'm going to send you clips of the sessions. I'm going to give you more information about what we're working on, why we're working on it, and how we work on it. And we did that. So I said, okay, what do you think the problem is? Okay, the problem is the serve. Okay, the serve is now the problem, not the backhand. The serve's the problem. I said, give me a few weeks. I'm going to work on the serve, and we're going to improve it. And I said, I'll film the session. I'll film the session. I'll send you it, and I'll send you a little bit of me sort of doing a debrief or a brief on the video as well, so you actually fully understand what it is we're doing, why we're doing it. And we do the session, and it's a good session, and the player starts to improve the serve, and they start getting better. And parent feedback after a tournament, competed really well, really dealt with quite high challenge situations really well, served really well. But the ball toss just isn't quite right. I'm like, well, what's right? What's a perfect ball toss? Oh, well, they need to make sure they're extending up more and stuff like that. And I said, well, there's no such thing as a perfect ball toss. And that's hard for people to hear sometimes. Like, there's no such thing as a perfect forehand. Like, a perfect ball toss, what's perfect? The ball toss will depend on what I'm trying to do with the ball, what the score is, what the weather conditions are, my emotional state. Like, there's so much will affect my ball toss. So I can't just teach a ball toss. And again, the parent doesn't quite get that. And that's where the comparisons start to come in. It's like, yeah, but I've seen such and such have lessons, and they've got an amazing serve, and they spend a lot of time working on their ball toss. I'm like, okay. And then it's like, oh, and I've seen such and such, and they're really athletic, and they move really well. And I want my child to be just like them. And the concern there is, well, comparisons aren't very healthy. And I said to the parent, I'm pretty sure you're going to discourage your child to compare themselves to others on social media, compare themselves to other people within their class, because you know, like, how emotionally damaging comparisons can be. Like, it's not healthy to look at other people and go, I want what they have. You should always look inwards. Again, that's just my personal point of view. Yeah, but I get that. But if we look at that other player, like, they're doing really well, so we should be sort of copying them and getting the same results. And again, this is a huge misconception that parents have and tennis coaches have as well. They believe if they look at, I don't know, a national number 1 under 10 player, and they think, well, if we just copy what they're doing, we'll get the same result. I understand a tiny bit of logic of that, but you're putting a lot of faith in that they're actually doing the program right. And you're not giving the person, the player, a lot of credit there. Like, they're number 1 nationally at under 10 because not so much of what the program is, but because of their physical skill, the psychological skill. Like, the person is the world number 1. The person's a national number 1. It's not the program. The program hasn't made the person. Obviously, it's going to help a little bit, but you can't just take out a national level under 10 players program and copy it to your child. Like, if only it was that simple. Because we'll look at Alcaraz, we'll look at his journey from 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. We'll look at that. If we just copy it, then we'll get the same result. It's never going to happen. And it's just a quick fix of, okay, let's look at this. And it then came back to, well, we're looking at this other coach, and this other coach is getting really good results. I'm like, let me just stop you there. The coach isn't winning matches. The coach isn't winning tournaments. The players they're working with are winning tournaments. And sometimes, I know this is hard to understand, but players can do really well despite the coach. And we have this just survivalship bias where we look at people who are winning and we think it's because of the coaching. We don't think, oh, it's because that they're just really highly skilled. And despite maybe some bad coaching, they're still getting results. And we just think, oh, we'll just copy them. And there's a great quote from Mark O'Sullivan that I listened to on a podcast driving home yesterday. Like, if you throw enough eggs at the wall, one won't break. And then you think, well, just copy what the egg did. And it's the same thing. Like, we just look at what people are successful coaches or players, and we just think, okay, let's just copy them. And the part that gets lost in all this is where the player's gone on their journey through the approach that we've used. So the two players that have recently moved on, both club players. I don't mean that in a negative way, but both just regular juniors. Both got to good level. Yeah. Junior, sort of at a junior level, one national level under 10. Yeah. The other one who recently just left, potentially could be regional, national level. Like, we've got them to the show or the dance through this approach. So the approach works. It's working for the individual. And with both players, like, they're really high praise for the ability to handle pressure, the ability to play their best under challenge, the ability to perform in matches. Like, all that's high praise. So playing tennis, they're really good at. And both parents have got issues with the technique of how it looks. Like, to me, that makes no sense. And it's interesting because obviously they're getting to a level and they're now comparing to other peers and children in their age group. And yet they're not number one in the national, or they're not number one in the county, but they're looking at the number ones and they're going, oh, we need what they've got. We want to be in their spot. And that might mean going to their club. It might mean going and using their coaches. Again, they're trying to replicate what they believe has got that other person to number one. In the hope, and it's an absolute hope and gamble, that it works for them. And guess what? It might do. Like, again, both players may go on and they may really push on and develop. And that means they've made the right choice here. And I really hope that happens. My experience tells me it might not happen. Because the parents made a decision to move a player on. A player who's got a great relationship with their coach. And they're getting great results together as a team. And the parents are making that decision of, yeah, we need a change. And it's not coming from the player. It's, again, in the messages that I get, we've had a chat with player A or player B. And they're happy to make the change. You could have filled me because they seem to really enjoy our sessions. And it's not like they come and they don't look like they want to be there. But players will just want to make their parents happy. So the parents say, yeah, listen, we're thinking about changing your coach because we're looking at national level number one and they're doing 2-3 individuals a week. And Steve won't do that because Steve doesn't believe in individual lessons. But they're doing 2-3 individuals lessons a week, so we must do that. Yeah. They're doing lots of... They've got a technical coach. Steve isn't a technical coach. So to get you to the next level, you've got to make sure your technique's good enough. So the parents are making these comparisons and then making these decisions. And that's not a positive thing. And the way I always look at this is I look at people around me and they are highly successful. They have very expensive cars. They have big houses. They have flash watches. And I could look at them and go, you know what, I want some of that. I'm going to copy them and see if I get the same success. I'm never going to get the same success. But also, I've got a car, I've got a watch, I've got a house, I've got a garden. So I've got everything they've got. It just looks a little bit different. And I'm quite comfortable with that. And I think sometimes as parents, and I get it from parents because they're under so much pressure from what I call the bear pit, the other parents. Oh, we're going to Scotland next week because we want to go outside our region and play new people. So we're going to go all the way to Scotland to play grade 4. Oh my God, they're going to Scotland. They're really committed. Maybe we should go to Scotland. Oh my God, look at player A. They're playing 150 matches in a season. We should play 150 matches because if we play 150 matches, that will work for us. Oh, let's look at player B. They're having 5 individuals a week. Oh, maybe we should have 5 individuals a week. And they don't take into consideration the uniqueness and the individual that's in front of them. And that's the position tennis finds itself in, especially within the performance landscape. And you can see why so many coaches don't want to go into performance. They say they do, and they get into performance and they realize how tough it is. You get players to very good levels. You put in a lot of hard work and a lot of emotion, because again, it's quite sad when players move on. And then you have these parents who just make these decisions. Again, for the best interest of their child, in their opinion. But they make the decision, and even if they play tennis themselves, and the 2 parents in question here, they play tennis. But just because you play tennis doesn't mean you understand it. And it's, again, this may be my ego talking a little bit here. But when you've got a coach who, for a living, educates other coaches and is quite well knowing of the approach and the coaching, and you don't even see any of that, you look past it and you just see the superficial coaching that goes on, you think, yeah, I'll go with that because we just copy them. And coaches do it as well, don't they? Like coaches people look at Monotoglu and will think, oh, we'll just copy Monotoglu's Instagram videos and then we'll be successful. Or we'll just copy what Alcaraz is training and we'll just, and that'll make us successful. Or we'll just look at what the national level players are doing and we'll copy that at our little tennis club and then we'll be successful. There's no individuality within coaching. Like coaches don't look to coach what's in front of them. They'll just look to copy and paste. Parents also don't trust the process with coaches and they just want the quick results. They want the Amazon Prime. They want the results now. And that's the parent's ego. And the parent I'm talking about here with the second player that's move on, I think it's ego. Like, we want what they've got. We want to be what they are. Why? It's under 10s. Does it really matter if you win at under 10 county closed? No. I can't even tell you who won under 10 county closed last year. Because no one generally cares. And just because you win under 10 county closed doesn't mean you're going to be a tennis player. Like, we talk about this long-term process and this long-term player development. And all we're doing is chasing short-term goals. So there we go. Comparisons. Yeah, they're not great. And another player has moved on. But guess what? Another player takes their place. We start a brand new journey. And this is all learning from me as well. Hopefully, if you listen to this as a coach, you can learn a little bit from my errors and think what I'm going to do differently, especially now because we're about to start September term. I'll take on a few new players in September, is maybe a bit more honest with parents. I don't think I've been honest and open enough. And I think part of that is when parents look at these technical coaches, I've not been honest enough and say, listen, they're not great. They're not really that technical. And here's the reasons why. But it's hard because, again, people still think that technical coaches is what good coaching looks like. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'm going to stop. So, listen, as always, if you enjoy the podcast, leave a like, leave a comment if you listen on Spotify, and check out mytenniscoaching.com, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for tuning in to the My Tennis Coaching Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an update. Your support helps us bring more insightful discussions and valuable tips to enhancing your coaching journey. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at My Tennis Coaching for daily inspiration, coaching advice, and behind-the-scenes content. Stay connected, stay inspired, and keep pushing the boundaries of your coaching skills. Until next time, keep fostering growth, innovation, and excellence on and off the court. See you in the next episode.